Welcome to Transqat. I'm Clare McCarthy. When one of my oldest and dearest friends, who lives in Brookline, Massachusetts, told me about a local tattoo shop that offers services for the trans community, I immediately reached out. I knew virtually nothing about cosmetic tattooing, particularly as regards trans healthcare. I learned a lot in this conversation. The shop's owner, Darlene Chesko, and I decided that it might be cool if she were working on me while we talked. So be forewarned that this episode contains more background buzz and hum and whir than usual. We are at Odyssey Wellness Tattoo in Brookline, Massachusetts, and I'm here with Darlene Chesko.
Hello.
Darlene, welcome to Transqat.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us here today.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for coming in, and you're getting a tattoo. So
what are we doing?
we are putting a rose on a forearm.
Ooh, is it my forearm?
It is your forearm.
Oh, great! That's the best.
And I'm really grateful to you that you're letting me make this the proper size, and you're not trying to make me make it smaller.
So we've got the stencil on the arm right now. Mm-hmm. You just lifted that off, and
yeah, now I'm setting up my inks.
Well, while you're doing that, wellness, not a word that you often hear in relation to tattoo places.
It's true.
Tell me about that.
It was a little risky putting that word in the name because it confuses people, but I think it's catching on after 7 years. Wellness. Tattooing can be applied therapeutically in a lot of different ways. The face of the tattoo industry has changed so much since I was brand new at it, and any tattooer will tell you that. The tattoo industry post Miami Ink is very different than pre Miami Ink.
Okay,
and all the shows.
Tell
and
me
stuff.
what that is.
Miami Ink was a reality show.
Oh, okay.
It's like the first real show of note that involved the tattoo community, and a lot of very well-known tattooers were on that show or became very well-known because of that show.
So
it brought the idea of tattooing
yeah.
into the average American's living room.
Because tattooing was sort of reserved for certain subcultures.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Bikers had tattoos.
Yeah.
Servicemen had tattoos.
Yeah.
But
anyone who traveled, it's about, it's about a lot of stuff. But the traveling, like that's how tattooing got around. It's not a coincidence that the circus brought tattoo to the people. It's not a coincidence that bikers did it. It's not a coincidence that sailors did it. Somebody went somewhere, saw something awesome, got it there, and then brought it home, and everyone at home was like, "What's that?"
That's so cool. Yeah.
And that's the basic story of how tattooing like circumambulated the globe and is everywhere now.
But you used to. Well, maybe this is just me being a snob, but you used to be able to make certain judgments about if you saw somebody with a sleeve of tattoos. Mm-hmm. You had certain expectations of who you were talking to.
Yep.
And that is...
I love those people. Well, I'm going to go back to Miami Ink. One of the most recent ways, I would say. In my humble opinion, I'm not an authority. Never claimed to be one. You are in this room.
Sorry.
Well, yeah, okay. Between you and me, I guess I'm the authority. But I noticed a difference in who was coming to get tattooed. Okay. Like it wasn't like a subculture cool kid or outlaw thing. It was like soccer moms that wanted to get a tattoo because their mother passed away, or, and they wanted to like put meaning into this tattoo. Mm-hmm. And these shows presented tattooing to the general public as art, as opposed to scandal,
Right.
So
that word outlaw, that's what I was reaching for before, that you used to be able to assume that there was a degree of outlaw culture to anybody who had tattoos. Mm-hmm. And I
loved that. Yeah, my very first tattoo was done in New Hampshire by a guy named Rock and Roll at LA East Ink, or an LA East tattoo studio in Laconia, New Hampshire. It's a 100% outlaw biker tattoo shop. It was awesome. I felt really cool and very dangerous getting that there. Now, and it was like a super awesome adventure.
Well, we're sitting in your studio here, and it's clean and it's well lit and it's lovely. I'm assuming Mr. Roll's
Times have changed.
Mr. Roll's studio
Yeah.
is a little different.
Mr. Roll, it had carpet. It was gross. Like when I think back on it, and this was also in 1990 because I was like 18, so
There you
got
go.
my tattoo as soon as I could. Once my dad wasn't around. Are you ready?
I am
to get
ready. So you
started?
can probably hear the noise in the background. We are about to get started.
I'm actually going to move this a teeny weeny bit. Okay.
So that it takes a change, and you're saying that it takes that turn maybe in the 90s?
No,
Where-
I think, well, I also have a very limited view of the tattoo scene prior to moving to Oakland, California when I got out of college, because tattooing had been illegal in Massachusetts since the 60s.
Oh, really?
And I grew up here
Oh, my
in
goodness.
Massachusetts, and I didn't see a lot of tattooed people. I did see my dad. He was tattooed,
Okay.
and he is the person who, I mean, he didn't try to do this, but his tattoo got me interested in tattoos. And I had to know about it. Had to know how it stayed there, why it didn't wash off,
Right.
where did you get it? What did Nana say? Did you get in trouble? Like, I needed to hear this. I heard that story a million times.
What was his tattoo like?
It's of his own name. But he got it with, this is the best part, he got it with a fake ID. So the ID said like Billy Madison, for example. I don't remember the name, but it was something. It was not Mario, I tell you that. So
So he had somebody else's name tattooed on it?
no, he used someone else's ID to get
Mario.
the name. And when the guy was like, all right, Billy, what do you want? He said, Mario. The guy was like, what? But your ID says whatever. And he's like, it's my nickname. And the guy was like, just shut up and sit down.
Yeah,
He was just like,
this
And then
conversation's
my dad
done.
said it cost $1.
No.
Yeah, he got tattooed in Scully Square in Boston, which doesn't
wow.
exist anymore. So, like, that story, I love it. It's historical. It's
That's great.
hilarious. And, and there you go. That's, like, a huge part of my tattoo origin story is that story of my dad.
So you see your dad's tattoo, it intrigues you, and then, so Oakland, you said, is the next step?
Yeah, well, I moved to, so I got my first tattoo before I went to college. And then I went to New York. I lived in Ithaca, New York, went to Ithaca College, and while I was living there, I got a couple more tattoos. Ironically, New York, tattooing was also illegal at that time, so I had to find, someone like an outlaw tattooer to tattoo me, and ended up getting tattooed, like in a studio above someone's garage. But he came highly recommended by the community,
Right. Word of mouth.
and
Sure.
yeah, exactly. But I didn't get a legit tattoo. Oh, and then there's the tattoo. I did get a tattoo in a tattoo shop by this guy who, after it was done, told my boyfriend and me that he only had one working eye. That was, we were like, I'm really
that's a
glad
time to worry.
we
Yeah.
didn't know that in the first place.
But
So,
it came out looking fine.
it was fine. It was a very simple thing, but we were just kind of like, wait, what? That's part of the adventure, I guess.
And when do you make the move from admiring tattoos, getting tattoos, to, I want to do this?
After I graduated college, my soon-to-be ex-husband and I moved out to California with some friends. Then I saw tons of tattoos everywhere. I was just like blown away. I saw women my own age walking around with like these beautiful sleeves and all this color. So much eye candy. I was like, you gotta know how to do that. And then I just started pursuing it. And part of becoming part of the tattoo community is being a tattooed person. And that's a big step when you know who you want to be. At that time in my life, I thought about it as picking a side. I was like, this is the side I'm on. Because I wanted to get tattooed. And I didn't give a shit if it meant that I was going to be relegated to subculture forever.
So, yeah.
I didn't care.
But
And
that-
then
that word
I wanted to do it too.
Yeah.
So, I dove in.
But that word community, and I'm assuming this is at a point before sort of internet communities are a thing.
Oh,
where
yeah.
You actually have to
I
meet
didn't
the
have
people.
I was like
and-
cell phone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
no
that's
way.
right.
Yeah, you had to walk in there. You had to look. The only way that you could see a portfolio is by walking into a shop and looking at
And
it.
talking to
and
somebody
talking
in
to
there.
someone. And back at that time, if you walked into a shop with a photograph of someone else's tattoo, nobody would do it because it was like personal property. Whereas everything online now, you can just
So it's proprietary.
click and
yeah.
whatever,
Okay.
but different. You
Were-
had tattoo magazines. I don't know if you noticed. I bought a bunch of tattoo magazines
I
from the 90s.
saw them in the lobby.
Because it just them, and I'm actually in one of them. Not me personally. It's like my 7th and 8th tattoo.
So what do you have to do? What's the training like?
Well, training is up to the individual. It's still pretty much like a apprentice system. So
wow.
you find a sensei, you find someone willing to show you the ropes, and then you do what they tell you to do.
And
you fulfill your commitments, and you do a good job. Yeah. It's like learning anything.
Yeah.
And everybody's methods are different. So I couldn't really speak to a general way of doing stuff because it's still on a very individual basis. There are classes out there for stuff that's more regulated, like cosmetic tattooing, but thoughts of regulating the way people learn how to do traditional tattooing just feels weird to most of us in the community. And for all the new kids out there who are just hitting the ground running and doing awesome, they had a very different experience because they grew up with Instagram and the internet and access to incredible bodies of work at their fingertip to be inspired by and to emulate.
Right.
And I didn't have that. Like I had the people around me, and they were awesome.
What you could see
but you know
firsthand.
what? Those people had to be willing to tell me how to do stuff, and a lot of them weren't.
Yeah. Well,
so.
Using the word sensei is telling.
Yeah.
And it's certainly a part of Japanese culture. We're still working our way towards wellness, but
I know.
But we're going off into history here for a second.
Yeah.
So Japanese like ukiyo-e paintings.
Yeah, the wood blocks.
Yep, very often have characters with tattoos that are telling mythological or historical significance. And it's kind of
and those are
film
like
within a film, right?
Right, and those are design standards that prevail throughout tattooing now, back then, right now, and forever. I don't think that would ever change. Who can wield a machine and make that happen? That, that's my husband. He can do that. He's amazing. He does big work, and people come to see him from elsewhere. And, he's been tattooing for a long time. My work is much different than that. I work on a smaller scale and started getting really interested in the cosmetic and reconstructive field. So
and as long as you've landed there, let's go that way. So cosmetic tattooing different from like what we're doing right now.
This is a traditional tattoo. We're putting something cool on your arm,
there you
which
go.
There is, and that is not less than anything we're going to talk about today, but cosmetic tattooing could be permanent makeup. It could be reconstructive tattooing, for instance, nipple reconstruction, 3D nipple tattooing for people who have had damage or trauma to their nipples or areola, or just lost them altogether from breast cancer, reconstruction, or, like top surgery. Sometimes within the trans community, if a trans guy gets top surgery and he has his nipples grafted back on, he could lose pigmentation, or they might just not heal well, or there might be scarring around the outside, and we'll clean that up. And there's so many different applications, I think, for cosmetic tattooing in the wellness, to be included into the wellness realm.
But let's start with the nipple reconstruction, because that provides a link, a thing in common between transmasculine folks and and cis women who have had breast cancer?
Well, lots of, there's different sort of layers to that as well. You know, if a cis woman has had breast cancer and loses her breasts, loses breast tissue, and maybe is not able to have a nipple sparing surgery, then generally speaking, she could have reconstruction, and her surgeon, if she's a good candidate for it, could reconstruct the nipple as well. And then she could come and see me, and I could repigment her areola, and then I could re-enhance the appearance of that nipple with pigment and ink, and just sort of contour things and give her that piece of her body back. For trans men, every once in a while, there will be a surgeon who doesn't regraft the nipples on, or just takes them off, and then I get to just put the nipple on. And actually, I wouldn't know what percentage to say, but generally speaking, like, it kind of looks better that way, just because then you can position them where they would naturally be, like on a cisgendered man. I mean, and I know at this point with gender affirmation surgery, and that there's a lot of care taken to make sure that things land where they're going to look most natural. But you can't always, I mean, it also depends on the breast that's being transformed. So
a lot of X factors, and
exactly.
And there is a range of quality to the surgeons. I was
Yes,
very
absolutely.
very happy with mine, but
Good.
I've certainly heard stories of people who were not. Now, with the scar tissue, because top surgery leaves scars, are you able to tattoo on the scars?
Yes, so that's part of the wellness service as well, is helping trans men deal with those scars. And sometimes it just means I'm slapping a chest piece on somebody, like this big badass, traditional tattoo, but we're going over that scar tissue to distract from that. Yeah, I'm working with someone right now. We're doing this really cool sort of Egyptian chest piece. I worked with someone within this last year who is really into armor, and so I did sort of like a samurai-esque, like, chest plate.
What a statement to have armor tattooed on you.
Yeah, it looks cool. He's a bodybuilder as well, so it fits so nice. It just looks very striking and super awesome. And those scars, they're under all that. And then the actual needling, the act of putting the needle in and out of the skin into with the scar tissue is therapeutic as well. I realized that by accident, 15 years ago. But
because it's abrading it, or because it's
it's softening it. So what it is it's like a controlled damage to the skin, the skin. It's breaking up that scar tissue, and then it's also encouraging the reproduction of collagen in the skin that softens things, smooths things out. Yeah, it's really cool. And I've had a meeting with a person who works for, I believe she's worked for the Brigham and Women's Burn Clinic. She was curious about needling, and she told me that pretty much what I was talking about to her with the needling services that I provide, that's what lasers are doing. When people with, let's say, burn scars go and get laser treatments, they're just getting needled with a laser, not a needle. The laser is poking holes and encouraging that repair, like the body to repair itself. And that's what...
Have you ever worked on anyone with burn scars?
Yes, I have, although she wanted something like pretty.
Yeah.
And she had also been through many, 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 many surgeries already, so she was ready to get her flowers, and I can't remember everything that she got. She had a lot. She had quite a story. That's one of the things. Like, I'm always tattooing someone with some crazy story, you
Right.
know.
The first time you and I talked on the phone, you had just finished working on eyebrows for someone who had had chemo,
Yes. Yeah.
which again, not something I would have thought of.
Yep. We do that. Do a lot of that. I'm fortunate that I get to also work with a like a nonprofit. I took some training at a place called the Solar Institute in Pennsylvania, and they have a nonprofit, so they hired me on as an associate artist, and then they donate nipples, and they donate like
Tattooing,
reconstructive tattooing for women who have been through chemotherapy. To my knowledge, they don't include any other groups. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I've only met with women who have been through chemo or are currently in chemo,
Mm-hmm.
and they pay me to tattoo the women, so that they send me.
Well, now, one of the words that trigger is the wrong verb here, but that struck me when we were talking about cosmetic tattooing is that is the word that insurance companies use to often deny trans people coverage.
Yes, it's
saying
very
this is
convenient.
cosmetic
Yeah.
rather than essential. And so when you're using the term cosmetic tattooing, you're actually going in the other direction and saying this qualifies as healthcare, pretty much.
Yeah,
you
well,
know?
my services, at least for the areola reconstruction, are reimbursable. But I have all the letters behind my name that
Okay.
one needs to be reimbursed.
So you can be reimbursed for mastectomy patients, trans people?
Some of my trans clients have been reimbursed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, but it's very inconsistent, and they also have to be the ones to do the footwork. Like, I can't.
Right.
It's not.
You're not going to chase that down.
No, that's not my job.
Well, that's amazing. So you've got this whole reconstructive cosmetic tattooing thing. Mm-hmm. There are people we had been talking about who use tattoos to tell a bit of their story.
Yes.
And then there's just folks who are in it for the art. You know?
Yeah, and it's
Which
all
is-
fine.
it's
like,
all- yeah,
it's all legit.
absolutely.
I like birds. That's
That's all we need.
That's
yeah.
all you need. I want a blue rose.
Yeah.
And that's all you need to say. I mean, one of the things about the shows is it makes people feel like they can just come up and ask you about the meaning of all your tattoos, which I'm just going to be blunt. It can be a drag, but that's also like, it's like Kim Kardashian being mad that she's famous.
Yeah.
It's like all she wanted.
You brought this on yourself. Yeah.
You signed up for this. Likewise, I am very visibly tattooed, and I can't be mad at people for asking me questions about them.
And so how much would you say percentage-wise, how much of your clientele, how much of your business is cosmetic, reconstructive, as opposed to aesthetic? I asked her a question while she's working on this wee tiny leaf.
Yeah. That was a good question. It fluctuates all the time, really. And I have kind of noticed there are seasons for certain things, but I would say it's like 50-50 at this point. But then the like traditional tattooing that I'm doing is typically going over scar tissue. People because now it's out. The cat's out of the bag. Darlene tattooed scar tissue. So
I should have gotten a tattoo of a cat coming out of a bag.
You should have.
Next time.
I can draw a cute thing for you. I see it already. Nobody gets just one tattoo.
Well, I have.
But you already have.
Well, my friend at school made that very clear when I was asking him about I was going to go get my first one, and he said, "No, it's going to be fine, but be forewarned, you're not going to be able to stop."
Yeah.
And
the whole Lay's potato chip.
yeah,
thing,
exactly.
no
And
one can eat
it's
this one.
and he was 100% right. So thanks, Matt, for the warning.
It's pretty unusual at this point that I'm just tattooing someone because they just want to get tattooed.
So there's
There's
purpose
usually
behind
a reason. Generally speaking, I'm doing very purposeful, thought out tattoos for people who are thinking about every little stroke, like
right.
every tiny little thing, and also that typically maybe aren't, people who would get tattooed otherwise. maybe they didn't, their goal in life was not to be a tattooed person, but then they found out that they had cancer, and now they're doing this thing that they never thought they'd do.
Yeah.
Like that happens a lot.
People come in, they get the nipple reconstruction, they get their eyebrows tattooed, and it's like, oh, well, that wasn't bad at all.
Yeah,
that was kind of fun. How about if I do?
Yeah, totally. And then the next thing you know, they're getting a cancer ribbon, or their sister's coming in to get something to be supportive. Is
this the color that we're setting up now? Or?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Saying things with tattooing, with art on your body, is sort of intrinsic to being trans, which is not to say that all trans people want or have tattoos, but the notion of claiming your body as your own, telling your own story with your own body, because the truth is, this is my 5th tattoo, and I started after I came out.
Oh yeah.
And it's so my tattoos do tell pieces of my life, and I see that as really linked to having been closeted for 55 years.
Right.
It's like finally a chance
the freedom
to
just
it's freedom.
Express
There's
yourself.
the word.
Yeah. I like celebrating people surviving things.
Yeah.
And I got to this point. I mean, it's a multifaceted reason why I decided to do this kind of work. Honestly, was at a point in my life where I really wanted to be a mom, and I didn't know if I was going to have a partner to do it with. And I just looked at my, how could I make tattooing work for me in that way? How can I make tattooing? How can I make more money in less time?
Right.
So that I have more time to be a single mom. That was like the first thing that sort of made me think about permanent makeup and cosmetic stuff.
Sure.
And then, so I went and I checked it out. I took a class, and I learned about it. And then while I was researching where I was going to be going and everything, and I chose my program based on the material. Like, I didn't want to have to buy new equipment. So I went to a program taught by this man who was a traditional tattooer for years, ironically in Quincy, Massachusetts.
Oh.
Yeah, he was an ex-Marine. I mean, I went down to Florida to take this class, but he used to tattoo up here. And he was an ex-Marine, and he then moved into cosmetic tattooing in the 70s maybe, or late 70s, early 80s.
So this has been a thing for a while then.
It has, but I mean, it's really I didn't really know any trans people who were out to me anyway. I just I wasn't necessarily, and I didn't go there specifically to learn about anything except for how to be more effective moneymaker, honestly.
Right.
And then I started doing some research about the program that I chose, and beyond just the research I did to choose it, and then realized that areolar reconstruction was part of the curriculum, and I was instantly fascinated. And I had been fascinated by it previously, but not in a way that, it was a passing interest. And and I just remember saying to myself, I definitely hope we get to learn a lot about that. That is really amazing. How cool is it to use the tattoo medium to put a body part back on someone?
Absolutely.
It's outrageous. And the things you can do, I've been asked to tattoo to recreate belly buttons.
Wow.
Or toenails. Or,
oh my God.
Yeah, one time there was a woman who was born with 2 of her toes fused together, and she wanted me to make it look like there were 2 toes, not just one big toe.
So
It's a weird, wacky world out there, and I get to meet a lot of really great people that have really interesting situations.
Yeah, that's everybody that you're working on in that context has a story.
Yeah.
How available is this kind of cosmetic tattooing? You're here in Boston.
Well, that's a good question.
I
don't really know. I mean, I would assume that metropolitan areas is where you're pretty much going to find
Yeah. Okay.
these kinds of things. But there are permanent makeup places all over the place. Like you want to get your eyebrows done,
Mm-hmm.
you could go to 10 different spots here right now in Boston.
Yeah.
But in terms of who does exactly the type of tattooing that I do, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know about that. But med techs do the areola stuff in office, but they don't have 23 years of tattooing experience under
There you
their
go.
belt. And so I would always encourage somebody to go see someone with a lot of experience. I've redone a lot of those tattoos. They tend to fade. I'm not trying to trash talk anybody's
Right.
work at all, but I do think that the education for medical providers needs to be better in terms of, if they're going to provide people with tattoos post mastectomy, because these women have already been through enough, and then to put this subpar reconstructive tattoo on there, they don't feel good about being done, and that's important.
And with that, that's the goal.
Yes.
You want them to come out feeling good about their bodies and about themselves.
And they want to they want to feel whole again, and that can really help do that. Similarly with trans men, I do work with areola reconstruction for the trans community, and I do phalloplasty reconstruction tattooing, which it's the exact same thing as an areola reconstruction for a woman who has lost her breasts.
Mm-hmm.
You have a penis, you want it to look like it was always there, like
Okay.
it's part of you. It helps it become part of you.
Wow.
To see it in the mirror, and it is now the
And
right color. The skin tone has been adjusted. There's detail,
Right. Well, there again, and scarring.
and scarring, and there's so much to it.
You seem to be at the intersection of a lot of communities.
Yeah,
You've got your tattooing community. Now you've branched out into working with the trans community, with different medical communities, which puts you in this really central position to learn a lot of different things.
Yeah.
What have you learned from working with trans people? Good.
Well, what I have learned more than anything is that I have learned about how much assumptive language we toss around without thinking. Or, like it takes like an experience, like saying something dumb and being like, oh, shit.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's not me. Or, I was like, that's just stuff that's been in there. Somebody taught that to me, but that's not the way things are now. And I don't even believe that. Or, you know what I mean? Like I said something in front of one of my trans clients one time and instantly was like, oh man,
Yeah.
that's shitty. And then I went home and, I kind of gauged the situation. I was like, well, he seems okay. But I just kept thinking about it. So I wrote him an email and I apologized. And I was just like, hey, I didn't really think about what I was saying when I said that. And I certainly didn't want to make you feel uncomfortable. I'm still learning too. We're all, so I apologize if,
Yeah.
I hope you keep coming to get tattooed here, whatever. And then he didn't respond, and I was like, oh no, I screwed up. And then like a month later, I get this email from him, and he was like, hey, he was like, oh my God, I didn't even see that. He's like, what did you say?
Thank
I don't
goodness.
even know.
Yeah.
I have learned a lot about being much more thoughtful with my language, especially, with my clientele.
Yeah.
Which, everybody could use that, I
Sure.
think.
Well, there's an intimacy to this. I
There is.
often think of the same thing with my electrologist, is that's a really intimate relationship physically.
Yep, you're physically close.
And so the person like me on the table here, there's a degree of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And you want to know that you can trust the person.
I want my clients to know that I got their back, and I want them to have the best tattoo possible, and I want them to be comfortable, and I want them to have their privacy, and that's really important. Nobody likes being walked in on with their pants down, quote unquote, but sometimes literally with their pants down or with their shirt off, or this is intimate tattooing, and it takes a lot of trust. I feel really honored and super grateful to my clientele that they trust me the way that they do, because it's a big deal, and I understand that, and it's not something that everybody could or would want to do.
Right. But that's it.
But that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But the gender dysphoria
Yeah.
can make that especially challenging.
Exactly. And there are so many, and I've spoken and worked with a lot of different people in a lot of different phases of self-acceptance, and I have one trans client. She's lovely, and she's working on herself. She was traumatized as her male self, and she has I can just feel it coming off of her. She's working super hard to love herself, and you have to just you can't hug everybody.
Right, exactly.
You just can't, but I always want to,
But you're giving them beauty, art and beauty through this, what you're doing, and that's more lasting than a hug. You do a good job on that, and that's something that I'm going to be able to look at for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I mean, and of course, everyone loves a great review. But when I get a good review from my trans clientele, I feel really good about it, because I know that meant that they were really comfortable here. And that's more important to me, really.
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously, I want to give them good tattoo work. That's why they came.
Right.
But the fact that they're here and they're comfortable being here is huge. It's a big deal to me, and something that I've opened this place up to provide for people in the first place: privacy and safety and comfort. That's part of the wellness as well, knowing that you can trust your environment. And the average street shop may not be able to provide that, because we're a very private studio. There's no street access.
Right.
All my doors lock. You have to get through 2 doors to get into this room. And then
when I pulled up, I called because I was panicking that I was in the wrong place.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I didn't see any signage.
I know, because it doesn't look like anything. We're Brookline Village's best kept secret.
Yeah. In terms of the customer service leading up to this visit and my time here with you, Darlene, I'm very much feeling comfortable, seen, appreciated. So.
Well, good. Thank you for telling me that. I'm glad. Because if you weren't, they're all fired. No, I'm just kidding. Humanity. We're on humanity's side here.
What is your staff like here?
We have 2 really awesome shop guys right now who are learning. I have one full-time artist. She has her own clientele that she does like really beautiful and really fun traditional stuff. And then my husband Chad, he's got his clientele where he specializes in like big sort of space age he's kind of fused like traditional Japanese and biomechanical. I was about to say macrobiotic or something. Biomechanical, like H.R. Geiger inspired, like aliens, like all the, like the ship and the zoo. What is it? The zoomorph? I can't remember what.
Xenomorph.
Xenomorph. Thank you. Yeah. And then I also have an apprentice / protege who I am teaching the cosmetic and the reconstructive stuff too, and she's wonderful as well. So we're like kind of in the process right now of growing. We're in a growth phase.
So we've moved on. We just finished the green leaves. We're moving on to the blue part of the flower.
So you've had top surgery.
I have.
Have you ever, thought about doing any reconstructive tattooing for yourself?
I had never considered that as a thing until you and I, until my friend Beth put us in touch. Hi, Beth. We love you.
We do. Hi, Beth.
No, it had never occurred to me. Now, my scars are under the breast, so unless you go looking, they're not really visible.
Right. Yeah, it's different. It's a little bit different.
Yeah. Whereas for a transmasculine person, the scars are right up front.
there is a scar camouflage type of cosmetic tattooing or reconstruct. That's cosmetic, really.
Yeah.
Where you can basically like pigment match. If you have a hyperpigmented scar area, which means that the scar has lost pigmentation, you can. Wait, did I say hyper or hypo?
I thought you said hyper, but
Hypo.
hypo. Okay.
Hyper means it's darker.
Right.
Okay. And hypo means like no pigment. But there's other, especially for trans feminine clients, depending on how old they were when they started their transition, and if they have had experienced hair loss prior to that time or anything like that. There are things that we could do, such as hair restoration, tattooing. One of my trans feminine clients is getting that. She does microblading, which I do not do, and that is a form of tattooing basically that puts the ink in the skin with a hand tool, not a machine. And so she does a form of hair restoration. It's a method of depositing pigment under the skin. Basically, it makes the scalp look fuller. It makes your hairline look fuller, more dense at the roots.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be really helpful, for trans feminine women for trans feminine people to feel prettier, that they have like a fuller, healthier head of hair. Maybe they'd had some, typical pattern hair loss before they transitioned. And it's one way of sort of addressing that. You can also, give yourself a beautiful set of eyebrows that are really pretty. And there's cosmetic tattooing, like permanent makeup is really good for the trans community as well.
Eye makeup has always sort of eluded.
Well, let me look at you. We could give you permanent eyeliner, which would take care of that.
Okay.
And then some brows.
Okay, so here's a question.
Okay.
We're talking about tattooing different body parts.
Mm-hmm.
What's more sensitive? The idea of having a needle near my eye makes me very anxious.
Oh, and you're not alone.
But many things make me anxious.
Well, Claire, their permanent cosmetics also comes with some numbing.
Okay.
So you have help there. I mean, it's still a very weird sensation.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. Getting permanent makeup it's wild. You have to entrust your face into someone else's hands, and you just have to close your eyes and let go. But it's worth it when you do, because when you open your eyes again, you've got this sort of transformation has happened. And it's not going to make you look like a different person. It's just going to make your eyes more visible and more defined.
Mm-hmm.
And not, and eyebrows it's amazing what they do for a person's self-confidence, I've noticed.
Well, mine are light to the point of you're not sure I have any.
Yeah.
So that is really appealing to me.
And I mean, with what the brow line that you have and the hair that's there, we could just give you any shape you wanted. So in doing something like that, it kind of adds a different contouring to your face as well. Mm-hmm. It gives you like a lift without getting a lift.
Without facial feminization surgery, yeah.
Exactly. So that's really cool too. That's like just one more way to enjoy it.
How sensitive is the breast area for tattooing?
In terms of,
discomfort level, needle.
Because
compared to what you're doing right now, let's say you're
it's forearm. More sensitive for sure.
It's more sensitive.
Yeah, it's more sensitive.
Okay.
Anything on the torso is typically more sensitive than on a limb. Mm-hmm. This is just a hunk of meat and bone, skin. There's like no organs in there.
No,
it doesn't care. Your chest is like, why?
My chest cares. Yeah,
your chest cares.
Well, that's even getting electrolysis. I know that there are parts of my face that are more sensitive than others. And, so when Heather, hi Heather, love you, goes in on the upper lip, And particularly
Oof,
right in
that's tough.
the philtrum there,
Hey,
right
well,
below the. Oh my
I
God!
mean, I've been getting waxed for years.
Oh,
I'm
there
an
you go.
Italian girl.
That's
I
there you
know.
go.
The
Yeah.
upper lip is no picnic.
Well, fortunately, my electrologist is a veteran, and so she has no problem just saying, "Suck it up, Buttercup,"
Yeah.
and that helps.
I appreciate such things.
Yeah. So a lot more services for trans people than I had certainly ever been aware of. Anything that I'm skipping? Anything we
I'm trying to
should mention?
think. I mean, we talked about phalloplasty tattooing. I mean, I'm going to be speaking with someone about vaginoplasty, reconstruction, tattooing, which would be a new avenue for me. But I'm here. I'm here to do
Yeah.
the work. So whatever somebody needs, I'm just going to figure out a way to make it happen because there's a need in the community. It didn't occur to me. I mean, when I first started learning about reconstructive tattooing and the areola reconstruction and stuff, it was all kept within the realm of breast cancer, even in the educational stage, all kept within the realm of breast cancer. But as I was working here, I one day was like, why am I not marketing this to Fenway Health?
There you go.
Because I'm sure there's tons of people there that would benefit from some of this work. And I can't remember, I had a few trans people in my life at the time who let me just do it to them.
Yeah.
I just did their tattoos and it worked out really well.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we do this now too, because hello,
And
this
there,
is,
yeah, and there again, being in the Boston area, you've got access to all sorts of
Yes.
healthcare places and colleges with pride centers and LGBTQ groups.
And it was one of my clients that asked me if I would be willing, quote unquote, to do, reconstructive tattooing on his phalloplasty. And I was like, what? Then I was like, yeah, oh my God, of course I would. He's like, you don't have to. If it makes you uncomfortable. I was like, no.
But there again,
I'm fine.
that's a really high
And
degree of intimacy and trust.
It is, and and he taught me a lot. He taught me a lot. He let me ask him all these questions, and I'm really grateful to him for even asking me that because it's a new way that my work can be purposeful. The service-oriented nature of it is is one of the things that really appeals to me. I love all that stuff. I love my job, and I feel really fortunate that I pursued this career and was able to have art feed me my whole life. That's pretty amazing accomplishment for a kid with an art degree,
Oh,
And
absolutely.
everybody's telling you when you're in art school that you're never going to use your degree. So that's,
in a way that is just so much more than creating art. It's
right.
You're.
But there's this whole other sort of avenue that I get to walk, where I get to use my art skills and my tattoo skills and help people feel like themselves, like their true selves, which is really cool.
It is.
And something that I've needed to feel good about my work. It's kind of the way I felt about parenthood. Like at a certain point in my life, I was like, so is this it? Is I'm just going to do whatever I want all the time, forever, till I die?
Or is there some
Or is there
deeper-
another reason that I'm on the planet
Yeah.
doing what I do? And that's, after a decade of tattooing, I felt that way about my career too. It's like, what else am I going to do with this? I'm not that, I have one of the coolest jobs there is to have, or at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
One of the
Absolutely.
coolest jobs. I love what I do so much. I think it's every day, every single day, at least once I say to myself, like, I can't believe I get to do this every day. Because, and some days working is a drag. Okay, fine.
Right.
So working in the business and working on the business are very different things. And sometimes you do too much of one, you don't have time for the other,
Yeah.
as I'm sure you know.
And working time that has to go into outreach. You were saying you were at the TCNE conference here in Boston
I was.
in January.
Yep. Where, next year I want to have a table there. I want to be there all weekend and be in the, like the presenters gallery. I think that's what they called it this year, like on the convention floor, and then do talks as well.
But that's the point. You're doing this good work. You've got to put in the effort to make sure people know about it.
Yeah, and then I need to let doctors know about it. And sometimes the medical community doesn't want to listen to a tattoo artist, and they want to just do things on their own. Like, I got a little bit of, I've noticed a teeny bit of pushback in the medical community, like with the nipple stuff from certain people, not everybody. And then, and then I get a phone call or an email from a plastic surgeon in Springfield, Massachusetts, asking me if I would be willing to go out to Bay State Medical Center and do nipple reconstruction tattoos for his clients, his patients. And he was happy to hear that I also did work with the trans community for gender affirmation surgeries that he performs, although I never did see any of his. So I go out there one day a month and I do areola reconstruction at Bay State Medical Center Breast Center, Breast and Wellness Center. And I am just trying to think of a way to reach, more. I have some information about like the surgeons doing phalloplasty surgeries here in Boston, so I reach out to them. But that takes time. It takes time for me away from running this place. There's just not enough hours in the day for a small business owner.
I was talking to you about this before we started rolling, that self-care has to be a part of that too. If all you're doing is keeping the business running, then you're going to crash. You need to. Right.
Well, I told you I just got back from a trip where I just hung out in the mountains in a hot tub and didn't do much else. Best days I've had in a really long time.
I think when we get to the end of 2023, you're going to be able to say it was the best 3 days of your year.
It was the best 3 days. Well, there you go.
This is beautiful. Darlene, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I love that blue. I love
that works really well. Yeah.
The way the blue and the green too.
But anything else for trans folks? Anything else we should tell them about? I think we've been pretty exhaustive here. So
well, I could talk about microneedling a little bit. Trans men and non-binary people who have had top surgery, because the therapeutic benefits of what I was talking about before with, breaking up the scar tissue, encouraging the reproduction of collagen in the skin through a controlled trauma, basically, like a controlled physical trauma is what is going to get that collagen rebuilding. That can change the way someone actually physically feels in their body. With extensive keloiding from their top surgery. The scarring was really intense and just like blew out, and was like big and puffy and thick and shiny, and they told me that inside the scarring they were itchy all the time, and when they moved their arms and their shoulders, it was like they felt this like pulling in their chest, this tension.
Right.
So we in addition to doing some areola reconstruction for them, I suggested that they get 3 sessions of needling. So I like to do needling in sessions of 3 because you just get the most benefit. And you just break that stuff up.
Wow.
It looks crazy because there's no ink. It's just like you're just making someone bleed, basically. But then they heal, and that all goes away, and it heals, and then it's like more comfortable. And every time they came to see me, they were a little bit more comfortable. They came in the 3rd time, and they were like, "I'm so much more comfortable than when I first walked in here."
How distressing! A top surgery is so affirming, is so important, both for the trans feminine and the trans masculine. I know it was a critical part of my transition. And to come out of that and feel like something's gone wrong, that's got to be really upsetting. So
and we can address that stuff. We can address the quality of the scarring. We can reduce the effect of the keloid. We can even address some pigmentation issues just with needling alone. No ink. That's wellness too.
That's amazing.
Yeah, there's so many interesting therapeutic applications to what I do, and it fascinates me every time I figure out a new one. I'm like, oh, we could do this too. Like one of my clients told me that when she gets tattooed, she has a pain condition, fibromyalgia and something else, and she's in pain all the time. This is a direct quote. She's like, sometimes it's 2 days, sometimes it's 2 months though. Wow. I was like, wow, well, we could just needle you. Wow. And we can do, we could needle stretch marks. You can needle any kind of scarring. So it falls into the realm of wellness in a number of different ways. We've got how it can benefit the trans community, how it can benefit the breast cancer survivor community.
I'm also thinking veterans.
Returning veterans. For sure. Could benefit. Yeah. Anybody, honestly, that has scarring could benefit from this. And it's a lot more affordable than going to the hospital and getting laser. Yeah. Or, unless, I guess it depends on what your benefits are like. But some people would prefer to come here than go there. This room is a lot more comfortable and a lot more inviting than your average hospital layout.
Absolutely. Yeah. Been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited. I've never done a podcast. Okay, well, let me wrap you up first.
I'm putting the Tootsie Pop in.
Yeah, you earned it.
A few thoughts on my new tattoo. First of all, it's gorgeous. Darlene, thank you. I've had so many compliments over the last month. You do excellent work. Second, the blue rose is a symbol in the mythology of David Lynch's Twin Peaks. In that fictional FBI, the blue rose is used to indicate a case with supernatural origins, the sort of case that Agent Cooper was drawn to. But that's incidental. I chose the rose tattoo, and I put it where I could always see it because Rose is my daughter's middle name. And I will never do anything as important as having raised her. As the Dropkick Murphys sing in their song Rose Tattoo, this one means the most to me. It stays here for eternity, a ship that always stays the course, an anchor for my every choice, a rose that shines down from above. I signed and sealed these words in blood. I'm Clare McCarthy. This has been Transqat. Thank you for listening. Let's talk soon.
This is Sadie McCarthy. I'm Claire's niece. Transqat is a production of Transqat Enterprises, LLC. Copyright 2022, all rights reserved. Join us on the web at transqat.com. That's TRANSQAT.com. There, you'll find links to Transqat, the blog, writing projects, speaking engagements, and more. You can also meet the team who thought spelling cat with a Q was a good idea. Follow Transqat on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Leave us a comment on whatever platform you use to stream this podcast. Just remember to be kind. She has enough self-esteem problems already. To reach Claire with a question or a suggestion for an upcoming episode, just use the contact page at the website or email her directly at crmtransqat@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.